Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of the Crimson Talon with his forearms crossed behind his back. His purple skin gleamed under the red lighting of the command center. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with the quiet efficiency of warriors who had served together for many cycles. The Korvath Dominion had ruled this sector of space for over 3,000 years, and Zektar had never known defeat. The tactical officer's voice broke the comfortable silence. "Commander, we have detected an unknown vessel ahead. It appears to be drifting." Zektar's eyes narrowed. Unknown vessels were rare in this part of space. The Galactic Coalition had mapped every spacefaring species in the known galaxy. He moved toward the main display screen with smooth, practiced steps. "Show me," he commanded. The screen flickered to life, displaying a strange ship floating in the darkness of space. It was smaller than the Crimson Talon, maybe a quarter of the size. The design looked odd to Zektar's experienced eyes. The hull was white and gray with unusual angles and curves. It had none of the elegant flowing lines of Korvath vessels or the geometric precision of other Coalition ships. "Run a full scan," Zektar ordered. "Check the database for any matching species." The science officer worked quickly, her fingers dancing across her console. After a moment, she looked up with confusion on her face. "Commander, the vessel is not in our records. The technology readings are strange. The power signature is inefficient, almost primitive. The hull material appears to be simple metal alloys with some kind of ceramic coating." Zektar moved closer to the screen, studying the vessel with growing interest. On its side, he could see markings in an unknown script. The universal translator struggled with it for a moment before producing a rough translation. UEDF Odyssey. UEDF, Zektar repeated slowly. "What does that mean?" "Unknown, Commander," the science officer replied. "The language is not in our database either. This appears to be a species that has never been contacted before." A low rumble of laughter spread through the bridge crew. First contact with a primitive species was always amusing. These encounters usually ended quickly, with the less advanced species either begging to join the coalition or fleeing back to their homeworlds in fear. "How primitive are we talking?" asked Vekral, the weapons officer. He was younger than most of the crew, eager to prove himself. "Based on the power readings and hull composition, I would estimate they achieved spaceflight perhaps 200 or 300 cycles ago," the science officer answered. "They are using chemical rockets for maneuvering." "Chemical rockets, Commander, like something from our ancient history." More laughter filled the bridge. Chemical rockets were what children learned about in history classes, not what any serious spacefaring species used. Zektar felt a smile cross his face. This would be entertaining at least. "Tactical position. Are they armed?" The tactical officer studied his screens carefully. "There are some energy signatures that might be weapons, but they are weak. Nothing that could threaten our shields. The vessel appears to be some kind of exploration or science ship." "Of course it is," Zektar said. "They wandered too far from home and got lost. Probably their first time leaving their own star system." He straightened to his full height. "Set an intercept course. Activate intimidation protocols." "Yes, Commander." The Crimson Talon turned smoothly through space, its massive engines glowing brighter as it accelerated toward the strange human vessel. As they approached, the ship's external weapons arrays began to glow with barely contained energy. Lights pulsed along the hull in patterns designed to show dominance and power. It was a display that had made hundreds of species submit without a shot being fired. Zektar watched the unknown vessel grow larger on the screen. It still had not moved or reacted to their approach. Either they had not detected the Crimson Talon yet, which would be pathetic, or they were frozen in fear, which would be understandable. "Communications. Send the standard demand on all frequencies," Zektar ordered. "Tell them to identify themselves and prepare for boarding inspection." The communications officer nodded and began transmitting. The message was simple and direct, translated into mathematical concepts that any species with spaceflight should understand. "Identify yourselves. Power down your systems. Prepare to be boarded. Resistance will not be tolerated." The bridge crew waited. Seconds passed. Then a full minute. "No response, Commander." the communications officer reported. Perhaps their communications equipment is as primitive as the rest of their ship, Vekral suggested. They probably cannot even understand us. Zektar was about to order a closer approach when the communications console beeped. Wait, Commander, we are receiving a transmission. Audio only. Play it. A voice filled the bridge, speaking in that strange alien language. The universal translator worked furiously to decode it in real time, producing a choppy but understandable translation. This is Captain Maria Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. You are in violation of our exclusion zone. Power down weapons and state your intentions. The bridge fell silent for exactly 3 seconds. Then laughter erupted from every station. Even Zektar could not help but chuckle at the absurdity of it. Their exclusion zone? Vekral gasped between laughs. Did these primitives just claim this sector of space? Their defense force, another officer added. They have a defense force, one tiny ship with chemical rockets. Zektar held up a hand for silence, though he was still smiling. This was better than he had expected. These creatures, these humans, had confidence that far exceeded their capabilities. It was almost charming in its foolishness. Scan their ship again, he ordered. How many life forms aboard? Approximately 200, Commander, the science officer replied, all concentrated in the central sections of the vessel. 200. Crew members on a ship that size meant cramped quarters and limited supplies. They were far from home, alone in space, and facing a vessel that outgunned them completely. Yet they had the courage, or stupidity, to issue demands. Zektar opened a communication channel. Unknown vessel, I am Commander Zektar of the Korvath Dominion. You are in Galactic Coalition space. Your primitive vessel is no match for our battle cruiser. You will surrender your ship for inspection immediately, or we will take it by force. He waited for their response, expecting panic or desperate pleas for mercy. What he heard instead made his smile fade slightly. The human voice came back, calm and cold like ice. Commander Zektar, you have 30 seconds to comply with our previous order. Power down your weapons and withdraw to a safe distance. This is your only warning. The bridge fell silent again, but this time no one was laughing. The sheer audacity of the statement was stunning. Did they just threaten us? Vekral asked quietly. Zektar felt his temper rising. He had given these primitives a chance to surrender peacefully. He had even been polite about it. Now they dared to issue warnings to him? To the Crimson Talon? Weapons officer, lock all forward plasma cannons on their vessel, Zektar ordered, his voice hard. Fire a warning shot across their bow. Let us see how brave these humans are when they see real power. Yes, Commander. Weapons locked. Zektar crossed his arms and watched the screen. He would teach these mammals a lesson they would never forget. By the time he was done, they would be begging to tell him everything about their primitive little world. Fire, he commanded. The forward plasma cannons of the Crimson Talon glowed bright orange as they charged. Zektar watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The warning shot would pass close to the human vessel, close enough that their primitive sensors would register the massive energy discharge, close enough to make them understand how outmatched they were. Firing solution locked, Commander, Vekral reported. The shot will pass 30 meters from their hull. They will definitely see it. Execute, Zektar said calmly. A brilliant bolt of superheated plasma erupted from the Crimson Talon's main cannon. It streaked through the darkness of space, leaving a trail of radiation in its wake. The bolt was powerful enough to melt through a small asteroid. It was more than enough to terrify a primitive species. Zektar expected to see the human vessel attempt to flee, or perhaps desperately try to activate whatever weak shields they might have. What happened instead made his blood run cold. A section of the Odyssey's hull split open with mechanical precision. Something launched from inside, moving faster than anything Zektar had seen before. Multiple thin beams of red light shot out from the human ship, so fast they seemed almost instantaneous. The plasma bolt simply disappeared. What just happened? Zektar demanded, leaning forward. The science officer was frantically checking her instruments. Commander, they used some kind of point defense laser system. Multiple lasers working together. They vaporized our plasma bolt before it could reach them. That is impossible, Vekral said, his voice uncertain. Laser point defense requires enormous amounts of energy and precision targeting. The Coalition abandoned that technology centuries ago because it was too inefficient. But the proof was on the screen. The plasma bolt was gone and the human ship sat there unchanged. Before anyone could speak, the tactical officer's console erupted with warning signals. Commander! Multiple objects deploying from the human vessel. They are scattering in a pattern around us. What kind of objects? Sektar asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. Unknown. Small, maybe 2 meters each. They are emitting strong electromagnetic signals. Commander, our targeting systems are experiencing interference. The main tactical display flickered and distorted. Red warning lights began flashing across multiple consoles. The smooth efficiency of the bridge turned into controlled chaos as crew members tried to restore their systems. Countermeasures, the science officer said with growing concern. They deployed electronic warfare countermeasures. Our sensors cannot lock onto them properly anymore. Sektar felt the first touch of real concern. These were not the actions of a primitive species. These were calculated professional military tactics. Reroute power to sensors, he ordered. Burn through the interference. I want to know exactly what we are facing. The communications officer suddenly shouted, Commander! High-speed launch detected. Multiple contacts incoming. Shields. Sektar roared. Full power to shields. The Crimson Talon's defensive shields flared to life, creating an invisible barrier of energy around the ship. The shields could stop plasma weapons, particle beams, and even small missiles. They had protected the ship through dozens of battles. Sektar trusted them completely. That trust lasted exactly 2 seconds. 3 objects hit the shields. They were not energy weapons. They were not missiles with explosive warheads. They were solid projectiles, chunks of dense metal accelerated to impossible speeds. The shields barely slowed them down. The tungsten rounds punched through the energy barrier like it was not even there. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. The impact sent shudders through the entire vessel. Sektar grabbed his command chair to keep from falling. Damage report, he shouted over the chaos. The tactical officer's voice was shaking. Commander, we have been hit. 3 impacts. Forward weapons array is destroyed. Engine control has been severed. Life support to decks 7 through 12 is offline. How? Sektar could not believe what he was hearing. Our shields should have stopped anything. The science officer was staring at her console in horror. Commander, those were not energy weapons. They were kinetic projectiles. Solid metal accelerated to approximately 3% of light speed. Our shields are designed to stop energy attacks, not physical objects moving that fast. Sektar felt his world tilting. Kinetic weapons. The Galactic Coalition had stopped using kinetic weapons thousands of years ago. They were considered primitive, inelegant, and inefficient. Energy weapons were cleaner, more controllable, and more civilized. No one had ever considered that kinetic weapons might be better specifically because shields were designed to stop energy. Time from their launch to impact? Sektar asked quietly. 4.7 seconds, Commander. 4.7 seconds. In less than 5 seconds, these humans had disabled a Korvath battlecruiser. They had done it with weapons so simple, so basic, that the Korvath had never even considered defending against them. The communication channel crackled to life. That same calm human voice spoke again, but this time there was something different in the tone. Something cold and final. Commander Sektar, that was your warning shot. The next salvo will not be surgical. You will not survive it. Sektar stared at the screen, at the small white and gray vessel that had just crippled his ship. The Odyssey had not moved. It had not even turned to face them. It had simply deployed weapons, fired, and resumed its previous position. Clinical, professional, deadly. Commander, what are your orders? Vekral asked. The young officer's confidence had completely vanished. Sektar looked around his bridge. Half the systems were offline. His weapons were destroyed. His engines were barely functioning. If the humans fired again, the Crimson Talon would be turned into scrap metal floating in space. He had spent 40 years in the Korvath military. He had commanded ships in 3 campaigns. He had received the Star of Valor twice, and now, within minutes of encountering an unknown species, he was facing complete defeat. Open a channel to the human vessel, Sektar said, his voice hollow. Tell them we wish to negotiate. The communications officer worked quickly. Channel open, Commander. Zektar took a deep breath. He had rehearsed surrender protocols in training, but he never thought he would actually use them. Captain Chen, this is Commander Zektar. We acknowledge your superior position. We request terms for peaceful resolution of this encounter. There was a long pause. Zektar could imagine the humans discussing their response, deciding whether to finish off the Crimson Talon or show mercy to a defeated enemy. Finally, the human voice returned. Commander, this is Captain Chen. Your request is acknowledged. Stand by for visual communication. The main screen changed. For the first time, Zektar saw a human. Captain Maria Chen sat in a command chair similar to his own, though the bridge behind her looked more cramped and utilitarian than the Crimson Talon's elegant command center. She was smaller than Zektar, with only 2 arms and 2 legs. Her skin was tan, her hair dark and pulled back in a tight formation. But what struck Zektar most were her eyes. They were the eyes of a predator. Forward-facing, focused, calculating. The eyes of a hunter. Chen studied him for a moment, her expression neutral. Commander Zektar of the Korvath Dominion. We need to talk. Zektar straightened as much as his wounded pride would allow. Captain Chen, I must confess surprise at your capabilities. Your vessel appeared to be less advanced than ours. A slight smile crossed Chen's face, but it did not reach her eyes. Commander, you made several mistakes today. I'm going to explain them to you, because you are going to deliver a message for me. Do you understand? Zektar nodded slowly. He understood perfectly. He was being allowed to live for a purpose. Good, Chen continued. Let me tell you about humanity, Commander. Let me tell you what you just encountered. Captain Maria Chen stood from her command chair and moved closer to the camera. Behind her, Zektar could see the human bridge crew working at their stations. They looked calm, focused, completely unbothered by the fact that they had just destroyed the weapons of a much larger warship. Your first mistake, Commander, was assuming that advanced technology means superior weapons, Chen began. Her voice was steady, like a teacher explaining a simple lesson. Your shields are impressive. They can stop plasma bolts, particle beams, all kinds of energy weapons. Very sophisticated, Zektar said nothing. He listened. But sophistication is not the same as effectiveness, Chen continued. Our weapons are simple. Take a dense metal, accelerate it to a significant fraction of light speed and aim carefully. Physics does the rest. Mass times velocity equals momentum. Your shields were not designed to stop solid objects. They were designed for an elegant, civilized form of warfare. She smiled again, and this time there was something dangerous in that smile. Humans are not elegant, Commander. We are practical. Vekro leaned close to Zektar and whispered, Commander, this is insane. They are using primitive projectile weapons. How can they accelerate them to such speeds with their technology level? Chen must have heard him despite the distance because she looked directly at the weapons officer. Railguns and coilguns officer. Electromagnetic acceleration. We have been using the basic principles for over 300 years. We just kept making them better, faster, more accurate. While you were perfecting your energy weapons, we were perfecting aim. Zektar felt a chill run through him. 300 years of development on weapons that the Galactic Coalition had abandoned as primitive. What else had humanity perfected, while the rest of the galaxy moved in different directions? Your second mistake, Chen said, pacing slowly, was assuming a lone ship meant we were vulnerable. She gestured to someone off-screen. A moment later, the display on the Crimson Talon's bridge changed to show a tactical map. Zektar's eyes widened. There were ships, dozens of them, no hundreds, all broadcasting the same identification codes as the Odyssey, all positioned in a sphere formation, 17 light hours away from their current position. The Odyssey is a scout vessel, Commander, Chen explained. We are the first wave. We are designed to be found. When we encounter unknown species, we assess their intentions. Are they peaceful? Are they hostile? How do they respond to contact? She looked directly at Zektar. You chose hostility. You chose to fire first, but we fired a warning shot, Zektar protested. We did not intend to destroy your vessel. You fired a weapon at us after we told you to stand down, Chen replied coldly. In human military doctrine, that is an act of war. The only reason you are still alive is because I recognized your warning shot for what it was. A more aggressive captain might have responded with full force. The science officer checked her long-range sensors and confirmed what the map showed. Commander, she is telling the truth. There are multiple vessels moving toward our position. They are beginning faster than light jumps. They will be here within the hour. Zektar felt his hands trembling. He clasped them behind his back to hide the weakness. Captain Chen, if your fleet arrives, this incident could escalate into a war between our species. Surely you do not want that, don't I? Chen tilted her head slightly. Commander, let me tell you about humanity's history. Let me explain your third and most foolish mistake. She walked back to her command chair and sat down, her posture relaxed but alert. Like a predator resting but ready to spring. Humans evolved on a death world, Commander. Our planet had extreme weather, dangerous animals, diseases, and natural disasters. We survived not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by being the most stubborn. We never gave up. We never surrendered. When something tried to kill us, we learned how to kill it back. Zektar watched as images appeared on the screen. A blue and green planet that looked beautiful from space. Then images of massive storms, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes that split the ground open. We climbed to the top of our food chain. Chen continued. We became the dominant species on our world. And then, Commander, we got bored. The images changed. Zektar saw humans fighting each other. Thousands of them. Hundreds of thousands. The battles looked primitive at first with simple weapons, but they grew more sophisticated over time. For 10,000 years we fought each other, Chen said quietly. We divided ourselves by tribe, by nation, by religion, by ideology. We invented new ways to kill each other. We turned everything we learned into weapons. Chemistry became chemical weapons. Biology became biological weapons. Physics became nuclear weapons. We fought 2 wars that killed millions. We nearly destroyed ourselves dozens of times. The images showed mushroom clouds rising over cities. The devastation was horrific. But we did not destroy ourselves, Chen said. We learned, slowly, painfully. We learned to work together. We unified our world under one government. Not because we suddenly became peaceful, Commander. We unified because we needed to prepare. Prepare for what? Zektar asked, though he feared he knew the answer. For you, Chen replied simply. For the moment when we would leave our world and discover we were not alone. We knew there would be other species out there. We knew some of them would be peaceful, and we knew some of them would be like you, approaching with weapons powered and demands ready. She leaned forward. So we prepared. We took everything we learned from killing each other and we refined it. We built ships. We built weapons. We trained soldiers. The United Earth Defense Force exists for one purpose: to make sure that when humanity meets hostile aliens, we survive. Zektar understood now. The Odyssey was not a helpless exploration vessel. It was bait, a trap, a test to see how other species would respond to contact. Humanity only unified 50 years ago, Commander, Chen continued. Before that, we were fragments. Dozens of nations with different languages, different beliefs, different goals. All of us fighting, competing, struggling against each other. Do you know what that means? She did not wait for an answer. It means we are very, very good at war. It is the only thing we have practiced our entire existence. While your species spent 3,000 years building an empire and maintaining peace, we spent 10,000 years finding better ways to destroy each other. You have experience with war. We have expertise in it. The tactical officer suddenly spoke up. Commander, 3 human vessels have just dropped out of faster-than-light travel. They are taking up positions around us. On the screen, Zektar could see 3 ships similar to the Odyssey but larger. Their weapons ports were open. Their engines glowed with power. Chen nodded. That is the second wave. The third wave will arrive in 15 minutes. The fourth and 30, we can keep this up all day, Commander. You fired on 1 scout ship. Now you get to see what humanity brings to a fight. Zektar looked at his crew. They were frightened. His ship was crippled. More human vessels were arriving. He had no chance of escape, no chance of victory. What do you want? He asked quietly. I want you to deliver a message, Chen said. I want you to go back to your Korvath Dominion and tell them everything that happened here. Tell them that humanity has arrived in the galaxy. Tell them we are claiming this sector of space as our territory. Tell them we are not interested in joining their galactic coalition. Not right now. She paused, making sure he understood every word. And tell them, Commander, that if they want to test us again, if they want to see what humanity can really do when we are threatened, we will be ready. We are always ready. Zektar bowed his head. I understand, Captain Chen. I will deliver your message. Good, Chen said. We will tow your vessel to the edge of this sector. Your crew will not be harmed, but you will leave and you will not return unless you come in peace." The screen went dark. Zektar stood in the silence of his ruined bridge and realized he had just made the worst mistake of his military career. He had attacked humanity expecting an easy victory and found something far worse. He had found a species that never learned how to surrender. The journey back to Korvath space took 3 days. 3 days of humiliation as human vessels towed the crippled Crimson Talon like a piece of salvage. 3 days of watching his crew work in silence, their confidence shattered. 3 days for Zektar to think about what had happened. The humans had been efficient. They repaired the life support systems but left the weapons destroyed. They provided food and medical supplies but kept the Crimson Talon under constant surveillance. Always 3 human ships nearby, always watching, always ready. When they finally reached the border of Coalition space, Captain Chen's voice came over the communication system one last time. "Commander Zektar, you are free to go. Remember your message. Remember what happened here." The tow lines disengaged. The Crimson Talon drifted free, its emergency engines barely able to provide thrust. Zektar watched on his screen as the human vessels turned and disappeared into faster-than-light travel, leaving him alone with his shame. "Set course for High Command," Zektar ordered quietly. "Best possible speed." It took another 2 days to limp back to the Korvath homeworld. As they approached, Zektar received a priority communication. He was ordered to report directly to the Council of Commanders immediately upon arrival. The council chamber was a vast circular room with seats arranged in rising tiers. 20 of the most senior commanders in the Korvath military sat in judgment. At the center, on the floor of the chamber, stood a single chair. The chair for those who had failed. Zektar entered in full uniform, his medals removed as custom dictated. He walked to the chair and sat facing the council. Above him, 20 pairs of eyes stared down with cold evaluation. High Commander Trelvik spoke first. He was ancient. His purple skin faded to almost gray, but his voice was still strong. "Commander Zektar, you filed a report claiming you were defeated by an unknown species using primitive weapons. The Council has reviewed your sensor logs and crew testimonies. Before we proceed, we need to hear your account directly." Zektar stood. In the Korvath military, one stood to confess failure. "High Commander, Honored Council, everything in my report is accurate. The Crimson Talon encountered a vessel from a species calling themselves humans. When I attempted to enforce Coalition authority, they responded with overwhelming force. They destroyed my weapons in less than 5 seconds using kinetic projectile weapons. I had no choice but to surrender." A murmur ran through the council. One of the younger commanders, Velkoth, leaned forward. "You surrendered to a single vessel? A vessel smaller than your own?" "The single vessel disabled my ship," Zektar replied. "Multiple additional vessels arrived within minutes. I was outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender was the only option that did not result in the death of my entire crew." "These kinetic weapons," Trelvik said thoughtfully. "Your report says they use simple projectiles. How is this possible? Our shields should stop such attacks." "Our shields are designed to stop energy weapons," Zektar explained. "The humans exploited a weakness we did not know we had. Their projectiles were accelerated to relativistic speeds. At those velocities, solid matter passes through energy shields as if they were not there." The science advisor to the council spoke up from her position. "I have analyzed the sensor data. The human weapons are indeed simple in concept, but the execution is masterful. The targeting accuracy, the velocity achieved, the coordination of their point defense systems, all of it shows a level of refinement that takes centuries to develop." Another commander spoke. "But you said they were primitive. How can they be both primitive and refined?" "They are primitive in their methods," Zektar answered, "but expert in their application. Captain Chen explained it to me. While we were developing energy weapons and shields, they were perfecting kinetic weapons. While we were building elegant solutions, they were building effective ones." Trelvik raised a hand for silence. "Tell us about this Captain Chen. Tell us about the humans themselves." Zektar closed his eyes for a moment, remembering Chen's predator stare. Captain Chen was professional, intelligent, and completely confident. She explained that humanity evolved on what she called a death world, a planet with extreme conditions that forced them to become excellent survivors. He opened his eyes and looked at the council. "High Commander, the humans are not like any species we have encountered. They do not have our strength or the speed of the Veltari, or the intelligence of the Zendari. What they have is persistence. They do not know how to quit. They do not understand surrender. Explain, Trelevic commanded. Captain Chen told me that humans spent 10,000 years fighting each other, Zektar continued. Not border skirmishes or minor conflicts. Total wars that killed millions. They invented weapons specifically designed to destroy their own cities. They created diseases to kill their own kind. They split atoms and created bombs that could level mountains. The council chamber fell completely silent. And they used these weapons on themselves? Velkoth asked with disbelief. Yes, Zektar confirmed. They fought wars that nearly destroyed their entire species. Multiple times. But they survived. They learned. And 50 years ago, they finally unified their world under a single government. Not because they became peaceful, but because they needed to prepare for the day they would meet other species. The science advisor was checking her data pad frantically. This is, High Commander. I am cross-referencing our long-range surveys. We did locate a planet matching this description about 200 years ago. It was marked as pre-contact and dangerous. The planet showed evidence of nuclear weapons testing. We decided to avoid contact for at least another 1,000 years. And now they have found us first, Trelevic said grimly. Continue, Commander Zektar. Captain Chen made it clear that the Odyssey was a scout vessel, Zektar said. It was designed to be found. It was a test of how other species would react to first contact. I failed that test by showing hostility. Within the hour, hundreds of additional human vessels arrived in the area, all armed. All ready for battle, he took a deep breath. High Commander, humanity is not a peaceful species. They are a warrior species. The only difference is that they used to fight each other, and now they are unified. Every tactical doctrine they possess, every weapon system they have developed, every strategic principle they know, all of it was learned through warfare against opponents of equal technology and determination. Another commander spoke. You mentioned a message. What message did the humans send? Captain Chen instructed me to tell the Korvath Dominion, and by extension the entire Galactic Coalition, that humanity is claiming the sector where we met as their territory. They are not interested in joining the Coalition at this time, and they made it very clear that any future contact must be peaceful, or they will respond with full military force. They dare to claim Coalition space? Velkoth said angrily. They dare to threaten us? With respect, Commander Velkoth, they did not threaten, Zektar replied. They promised. There is a difference. A threat is meant to intimidate. A promise is a statement of certain action. Captain Chen promised that if we return with hostile intent, humanity will be ready. And after seeing what one of their scout vessels did to the Crimson Talon, I believe that promise completely. Trelevic was quiet for a long moment, considering everything he had heard. Finally, he looked at Zektar with something that might have been respect. Commander Zektar, the Council does not find you at fault for this encounter. You acted according to standard protocol. The fault lies with our assumptions. We assumed that any species we encountered would be less advanced or willing to negotiate. We never considered that we might meet a species that weaponized warfare itself. He turned to address the full Council. We must call an emergency session of the Galactic Coalition. All member species need to know about humanity. We need to decide how to respond. Should we prepare for war? Velkoth asked. That, Trelevic said slowly, is exactly what we need to discuss. Because if Commander Zektar's report is accurate, war with humanity might be a war we cannot win. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some commanders called for immediate military buildup. Others urged diplomatic contact. Some even suggested ignoring humanity's claims and hoping they would remain in their own territory. Zektar sat in his chair at the center of it all and thought about Captain Chen's final words. We are always ready. He had no doubt that she meant it. Humanity had spent their entire existence preparing for war. The question was whether the Galactic Coalition was ready to face an enemy that never learned how to lose. The emergency session of the Galactic Coalition Council took place 3 weeks after Zektar's return. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the council station, a massive structure floating in neutral space. The station had hosted peaceful discussions for over 2,000 years. Today, the peace felt fragile. Ambassador Shelvara of the Zendari, the oldest and most respected species in the coalition, called the session to order. Her crystalline form reflected the lights of the chamber as she spoke in her soft musical voice. Honored delegates, We are here to discuss a matter of great importance. A new species has been encountered. The Korvath delegation has presented evidence of this species and the encounter that took place. We have all reviewed the data. Now we must decide how the coalition will respond. The chamber filled with the sound of delegates speaking in dozens of different languages, all translated in real time. The general mood was one of concern mixed with disbelief. The Veltari ambassador, a tall insectoid being with 4 wings, was the first to speak. Ambassador Shelvara, with respect, the Korvath report seems exaggerated. One small vessel defeating a battlecruiser, using primitive weapons? This seems unlikely. High Commander Trelvik rose to respond. He had been granted special permission to address the council directly. Ambassador, I understand your skepticism. I was skeptical myself, but the censored data does not lie. The damage to the Crimson Talon was real. The weapons signatures were real. And I have since learned that we are not the only species to encounter humans. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Shelvara raised a crystalline hand for silence. High Commander, please explain. Trelvik activated a holographic display. It showed a map of known space with several points highlighted. In the past 6 months, 5 different coalition patrol vessels have reported encounters with human ships. Most were brief and peaceful. But in every case, the human vessels demonstrated advanced tactical capabilities and made it clear they were claiming territory. A delegate from the quarry, a peaceful aquatic species, spoke up. If these encounters were peaceful, why are we concerned? Because in 2 cases, the patrol vessels attempted to assert coalition authority, Trelvik replied. In both cases, the human ships responded with immediate and overwhelming force. Both patrol vessels were disabled within seconds and then towed to coalition space, just like the Crimson Talon. The Veltari ambassador's antennae twitched nervously. They are expanding into our space and defeating our ships. This is an act of war, is it? Shelvara asked calmly. Have the humans attacked any civilian vessels? Have they invaded any inhabited systems? Have they made demands of the coalition itself? No, Trelvik admitted. They have only responded to military vessels that approach them with hostile intent or demands. They have avoided all civilian traffic. A small furry delegate from the Pixen spoke in a high-pitched voice. Then perhaps they are not the aggressors. Perhaps we are. The chamber erupted in argument. Some delegates agreed with the Pixen. Others insisted that humanity's mere presence in coalition space was an act of aggression. The debate went on for hours with no clear resolution. Finally, Shelvara called for silence again. We need more information. I propose we send a formal diplomatic mission to make contact with humanity. A peaceful mission, clearly marked with representatives from multiple species. We will invite them to join the coalition or at least establish formal relations. The vote was close, but the proposal passed. The coalition would attempt peaceful contact. What the delegates did not know was that while they were debating, intelligence reports were flooding in from coalition deep space monitoring stations. Reports that would change everything. 2 months later, the diplomatic mission departed. It consisted of 5 ships, each carrying ambassadors from different species. They traveled to the coordinates where the Odyssey had first been encountered, broadcasting peaceful intentions on all frequencies. They found a human fleet waiting for them. Not 1 ship. Not a dozen. 300 vessels arranged in perfect formation. Battleships, carriers, support vessels, all bearing the same symbol, a blue and green planet encircled by stars. The lead ambassador, a Zandari named Krelvos, stared at the tactical display in wonder and fear. There are so many. How did they build so many ships so quickly? His science officer checked the scans. Ambassador, based on the material composition and wear patterns, these vessels are not new. Most of them are at least 30 to 50 years old. 50 years? Krelvos whispered. That means they had this fleet before they even unified. The implications were staggering. Humanity had built a war fleet while they were still fighting each other. They had prepared for space warfare before they even knew for certain that aliens existed. A communication came through. Coalition vessels, this is Admiral James Kowalski of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your request for diplomatic contact. We accept. Please follow the designated coordinates to our diplomatic station. The coalition ships were escorted through the human fleet. Krelvos watched the ships passing by. Each one was different, bearing markings from different nations. The old nations of Earth before unification. Some ships looked sleek and advanced. Others looked crude and functional, but all of them were armed. All of them were ready. The diplomatic station was a newly constructed structure near the edge of human-claimed space. It was simple compared to the Coalition's Grand Council station, but it was clearly built to accommodate multiple species. The meeting took place in a large chamber with gravity and atmosphere adjusted for comfort. The Coalition delegation entered nervously, unsure what to expect. They found a single human waiting for them. She was older than Captain Chen, with gray hair and dark skin. She wore a simple suit with no military insignia. When she smiled, it was warm and genuine. "Welcome," she said. "I am Ambassador Aisha Okonkwo. On behalf of the United Earth Government, I thank you for coming in peace." Krelvos bowed in the Zendari fashion. "Ambassador Okonkwo, I am Krelvos, speaking for the Galactic Coalition. We have come to discuss relations between our peoples." "I am glad," Okonkwo replied. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." The negotiations lasted for 3 days. The Coalition delegates quickly realized they were dealing with experts. Ambassador Okonkwo was polite, friendly even, but she did not yield on any important points. Yes, humanity wanted peaceful relations with the Coalition. No, humanity would not stop claiming territory they considered strategically important. Yes, humanity would respect Coalition borders. No, humanity would not join the Coalition as a member species, not yet. "Why not?" Krelvos asked on the second day. "The Coalition offers protection, trade, shared technology. Why refuse these benefits?" Okonkwo looked at him with patient eyes. "Ambassador, humanity spent 10,000 years divided. We have been truly unified for only 50 years. We are still learning how to work together as one species. Joining a coalition of 47 different species, each with their own interests and politics, would be premature." "And the territory you claim?" the Veltari ambassador pressed. "Those systems were surveyed by Coalition vessels centuries ago." "Surveyed but not settled," Okonkwo countered. "No Coalition species has colonies there. No civilians have been displaced. We are claiming empty space for human expansion." "But it is Coalition space," the ambassador insisted. Okonkwo's expression did not change, but her voice became firmer. "It was Coalition space. Now it is human space. We have the ships to defend it and the will to keep it. I am not being cruel, Ambassador. I am being honest. The Coalition can choose to recognize our claim peacefully, or they can choose to contest it with military force. But the outcome will be the same." The stark truth of her words settled over the room. On the third day, Krelvos asked the question that everyone wanted answered. "Ambassador Okonkwo, what does humanity want? What is your goal in the galaxy?" Okonkwo stood and walked to a large window showing the stars beyond. "We want what every species wants, Ambassador. We want to survive. We want to grow. We want to explore and learn and build a future for our children." She turned back to face them. "But we also want something else. We want to be ready." "Ready for what?" Krelvos asked. "For whatever comes next," Okonkwo replied. "The galaxy seems peaceful now. The Coalition has maintained stability for thousands of years. But humanity knows that peace does not last forever. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of known space, there might be threats you cannot imagine. When that day comes, when the peace finally breaks, we want the galaxy to have allies who know how to fight." She smiled again, but there was steel in it. "The Coalition has forgotten how to war. Humanity remembers. We are not your enemies, Ambassador. We are your insurance policy." The meeting ended with a formal agreement. The Coalition would recognize human territorial claims in exchange for a non-aggression pact and limited trade relations. Humanity would not join the Coalition, but would maintain open communication. It was not the outcome the Coalition had hoped for, but it was better than war. As the diplomatic mission prepared to depart, Krelvos had one final conversation with Ambassador Okonkwo. "May I ask you something personal?" he said quietly. "Of course. Are you really ready to fight the entire Coalition if necessary? All 47 species?"